Hey, welcome back, my friend. If you clicked on this video, I already know something about you. You understand English pretty well when you read it. You can text, you can write, maybe you can even hold a slow conversation. But the moment someone speaks fast, or a movie plays without subtitles, or a stranger asks you a question in the street, your brain just freezes. Sound familiar? Yeah, I thought so. Stay right here, because in the next 30 days, we are going to fix that together, step by step, day by day, and by the end of this journey, you are going to understand English at a real B1 level, the level where you stop translating in your head and you just understand. My name is Alex, and this is English in Fluency, the place where we make English feel human, not homework. So grab your coffee, your tea, or whatever you're drinking right now, get comfortable, and let's talk about how your ears are about to change forever. Before we jump into the plan, I want to tell you a quick story because I think you'll see yourself in it. A few months ago, I was talking with a woman named Elena. She had been studying English for almost 6 years. 6 years. She could read novels. She could write long, beautiful emails. Her grammar was honestly better than a lot of native speakers I know. But when she visited London for the first time, she stood at a coffee shop, and the barista asked her a simple question, and she just stood there, blinking, completely lost. Not because she didn't know English, she knew plenty of English, but her ears had never been trained the way her eyes had. She had spent years reading words, but almost no time actually listening to real, fast, natural human speech. And that gap, that silent gap between reading and listening, is exactly what breaks so many learners' confidence. Elena told me later, with a little laugh, that she went back to her hotel room that night and just sat there thinking, what is the point of knowing thousands of words if I can't even understand a question about coffee? That moment changed everything for her. And I want that story to be the last time it happens to you, too. So here's the truth, and I want to be honest with you because that's what this channel is about. Listening is the hardest skill to improve, but it's also the fastest skill to improve if you do it the right way. Most people do it the wrong way. They watch a movie with subtitles in their own language and think they're improving their English. They're not. They're improving their reading in their native language while their ears sleep. Or they listen to super advanced native speakers talking at lightning speed about politics or philosophy, get frustrated after 5 minutes, and give up, thinking, I'm just bad at this. You're not bad at this. You've just never been taught how to train your ears properly. And that's exactly what we're going to do, starting today, with a full 30-day plan that takes you from wherever you are right now, straight into a comfortable, confident B1 listening level. Let's talk for a second about what B1 actually means, because I think a lot of people throw this word around without really understanding it. B1 listening means you can understand the main points of clear, standard speech about familiar topics, things like work, school, free time, travel, daily life. It means when someone talks to you at a normal speed about something ordinary, you get it, even if you miss a few words here and there. It doesn't mean you understand every single word in a fast news report or a movie full of slang. That's a higher level, and we'll get there eventually too. But B1 is your first real taste of freedom. It's the level where English stops being a subject you study and starts being a language you actually live in. And 30 days is enough time to get there if you follow this plan honestly, with real consistency, even just 20 or 30 minutes a day. Now, here's something important I need you to hear clearly. This plan is not about listening more. It's about listening smarter. You could listen to English for 5 hours a day for a whole month and still not improve much. If you're doing it the wrong way, just letting sound wash over you like background noise. That's called passive listening. And while it has some small benefits, it's not going to take you from confused to confident. What we're doing here is active listening, a totally different approach where every single session has a purpose, a goal, and a little bit of struggle. Because struggle, the right kind of struggle, is exactly how your brain grows new connections. Think about it like going to the gym. If you lift a weight that's too easy, your muscles don't grow. If you lift a weight that's impossibly heavy, you hurt yourself and quit. But if you lift something just a little bit challenging, again and again, your muscles adapt and grow stronger. Your ears work exactly the same way. All right, let's get into the actual 30-day journey. And I'm going to break this down into 4 weeks, because that's how Elena did it. And that's how thousands of my students have done it too. Each week has its own focus, its own energy, and its own little victories. And trust me, by the time you finish week 4, you're going to look back at week 1 and laugh at how far you've come. Week 1 is all about building your foundation, and honestly, this is the week most people rush through or skip completely, which is a huge mistake. In week 1, your only job is to get your ears used to the actual sounds and rhythm of English, without worrying about understanding everything perfectly. Here's what you do. Every single day, for about 15 to 20 minutes, you listen to something designed for learners, something slow, clear, and simple. Look for podcasts, videos, or audio lessons specifically made for English learners at a beginner to intermediate level. The kind where the speaker talks slowly and clearly, pausing between sentences. Don't feel embarrassed about this. Even advanced learners go back to slow, simple audio when they want to strengthen their base. During week 1, listen to the same short clip, maybe 2 or 3 minutes long, multiple times. The first time, just listen and try to catch the general topic. The second time, listen again and try to catch a few more details. The third time, read the transcript while listening, so your eyes and ears connect the written word to the actual sound. This is powerful because so many learners know a word only by its spelling, and when they hear it spoken naturally, with all its connected sounds, they don't recognize it at all. That disconnect between the written word and the spoken word is one of the biggest secret reasons people struggle with listening. Let me give you a real example, because I think examples make everything clearer. Take the phrase, "What are you doing?" In writing, it looks like 4 separate, clear words. But in natural, fast speech, native speakers often say something closer to "what you doing" or "woo ya doing," blending the sounds together. If you've only ever seen this phrase written down and never heard the blended, connected version, your brain will genuinely think it's hearing a completely different phrase, even though you know the written version perfectly well. This is called connected speech, and it's one of the biggest reasons learners with strong reading skills still struggle to understand native speakers. So, during week 1, Part of your job is simply becoming aware that this blending exists. You don't need to master it yet. You just need to start noticing it, start hearing it, and stop being surprised by it. During week 1, I also want you to start a listening journal. This doesn't need to be fancy, just a simple notebook or a notes app on your phone. After each listening session, write down 3 things. First, 1 sentence about what the audio was generally about. Second, 1 word or phrase you didn't understand and had to look up. Third, 1 word or phrase that you understood perfectly and felt proud about. This last part matters more than people realize. So many learners only focus on their mistakes and forget to notice their wins. And over 30 days, forgetting to celebrate small wins is exactly what makes people give up around day 12 or day 13, right when things start to feel repetitive and hard. Elena told me her journal became almost like a diary of her confidence growing, and by the end of the month, reading her early entries made her genuinely emotional, because she couldn't believe how far she'd come from those confused, frustrated first few days. Now, let's move into week 2, and this is where things get a little more exciting, because we start using a technique that I honestly think is one of the most powerful tools in all of language learning, and it's called shadowing. Here's how it works. You take a short audio clip, maybe just 15 to 30 seconds, spoken clearly at a normal pace. You listen to it once just to understand the general meaning. Then, you play it again, and this time, instead of just listening, you try to speak along with the recording at the exact same time, copying the rhythm, the pauses, the melody of the voice, even if you don't catch every single word perfectly. At first, this feels incredibly awkward, almost impossible. You'll stumble, you'll fall behind, you might even laugh at yourself a little. That's completely normal, and honestly, that's part of the magic. Shadowing forces your brain to process sound and produce sound at the same time, which trains your listening and your pronunciation together, in a way that simply listening alone never could. Do this with the same short clip for about 5 to 10 minutes a day during week 2, gradually getting more comfortable and more accurate with each repetition. During week 2, I also want you to start what I call prediction listening. Before you press play on any audio, pause for a moment and think about the topic. If it's a conversation between 2 people at a restaurant, ask yourself, what kind of words might I hear? Maybe menu, maybe order, maybe delicious, maybe bill. Write down 3 or 4 words you expect to hear before you even start listening. Then play the audio and see how many of your predicted words actually appear. This might sound like a small, silly exercise, but it does something really important. It trains your brain to listen with expectation, rather than blank confusion. Native listeners, even in their own language, are constantly predicting what comes next based on context. That's actually how human listening naturally works, in every language on Earth. When you train yourself to predict before you listen, you're not cheating. You're doing exactly what fluent listeners do naturally. And it dramatically reduces that panicked, lost feeling when audio starts playing. Let's talk about Elena's week 2 for a moment, because it wasn't smooth at all. And I think it's important you know that. Around day 9, she told me she almost quit. She said the shadowing exercises made her feel stupid, like a child mumbling along to sounds she didn't fully understand. She sent me a message that just said, "I don't think I'm good enough for this." And honestly, this is the exact moment, this exact feeling, that determines whether someone actually reaches B1 level or gives up and stays stuck forever at the same plateau. I told her something I want to tell you too. Right now, clearly. Feeling awkward while shadowing means it's working. If it felt easy and comfortable, it wouldn't be challenging your brain enough to create real change. She kept going, reluctantly, for 3 more days, and by day 12, something shifted. She told me the words started blending together in her ears in a way that finally made sense, instead of sounding like random noise. That shift, that click, is coming for you too, usually somewhere between day 10 and day 14, so if you feel discouraged around then, please, please, don't quit. You are closer than you think. Now, let's move into week 3, which is where we start adding real variety and real challenge into your listening diet. By this point, your ears have built a decent foundation, so it's time to expose them to different accents, different speeds, and slightly more natural, less simplified content. This week, instead of only listening to content made specifically for learners, start mixing in short clips of native content made for native speakers, things like short interview clips, brief news segments, or casual conversation videos. Don't jump straight into fast, complicated movies or heavy accents from documentaries about complex topics. Choose content that's still reasonably clear, maybe a calm interview or a simple vlog, just without the slow, simplified pacing of learner content. The goal here isn't to understand 100%. Honestly, native speakers often don't understand 100% of what other native speakers say either, especially with unfamiliar topics or strong regional accents. Your goal during week 3 is to understand the general idea and a good chunk of the details, while accepting that some words and phrases will simply pass by unrecognized, and that's completely okay. During week 3, introduce a new technique called gist listening, followed by detail listening. Here's exactly how it works. Choose a clip that's about 2 to 4 minutes long. Listen to it just once, all the way through, without pausing, without worrying about individual words. Afterward, in your own words, either out loud or in your journal, summarize what you think it was about in just 2 or 3 simple sentences. Then listen again, this time pausing every 20 or 30 seconds to check specific details you might have missed. This 2-step process, first the big picture, then the small details, mirrors exactly how fluent listeners naturally process speech, and it prevents that overwhelming feeling of trying to catch every single word at once, which is honestly one of the biggest mental traps learners fall into. I also want to introduce something during week 3 that I call the accent tour. Spend one day listening to a British accent, another day an American accent, another day maybe an Australian or Irish accent if you can find clear examples. This isn't about mastering every accent. That would take years. It's about training your brain to recognize that English doesn't have just one single correct sound. Elena told me this part actually became one of her favorite exercises because she started noticing accents in a way she never had before. Almost like she was traveling around the English-speaking world just through her headphones. She said hearing a Scottish accent for the first time genuinely made her laugh. Not because it sounded strange in a bad way, but because it finally clicked in her mind that English is this huge, diverse, living thing, not one rigid textbook voice. Around day 18 or 19, which usually falls right in the middle of week 3, A lot of learners hit what I call the frustration wall. This is different from the awkwardness of week 2. This frustration comes from ambition, from wanting to understand faster than your brain is currently able to. You'll probably notice moments where you understand 90% of a conversation, and then suddenly, one unfamiliar phrase throws you off completely, and you lose the thread of the whole thing. This happened to Elena on day 19 exactly. She was listening to a casual conversation about weekend plans, following along perfectly, feeling proud. And then someone used the phrase, "I'm totally knackered," and she just stopped, confused. And by the time she looked it up, she'd lost track of the whole rest of the conversation. She felt like she'd failed. But here's what I told her, and what I want you to remember too. Losing the thread occasionally is not failure. It's literally what real listening looks like, even for advanced learners, even sometimes for native speakers listening to unfamiliar dialects or slang. The goal was never perfection. The goal is comfortable, confident understanding of the main ideas, even with some gaps. Once Elena reframed it that way, stopped chasing perfection, and just kept going, her frustration turned back into motivation almost immediately. Now, let's talk about week 4, the final stretch, where everything you've built over the last 3 weeks comes together into real, practical, confident listening. This week is all about application, taking your improved ears out into the real world of English, or as close to the real world as you can get from wherever you're studying. During week 4, start listening to longer, more natural content, full podcast episodes, longer interviews, maybe even parts of movies or shows without subtitles, or with English subtitles instead of your native language subtitles if you still need some support. The key shift in week 4 is length and independence. You're not doing tiny, controlled 2-minute clips anymore. You're building the stamina to follow along with longer, more natural conversations and content. The same way your body builds stamina for a longer run after weeks of shorter training sessions. During week 4, I also want you to start actively using what you're hearing. This is huge, and a lot of learners skip it completely. After listening to something, don't just move on to the next thing. Take 2 or 3 minutes to either speak out loud about what you heard, or write a few sentences summarizing it, using some of the new words or phrases you picked up. This active recall step, pulling information back out of your memory instead of just letting it sit there passively, dramatically strengthens what you've learned. Elena started doing this by recording tiny voice memos on her phone, literally just talking to herself for 2 minutes after each listening session, summarizing what she heard in her own simple words. She told me it felt silly at first, talking to an empty room, but within a week, she noticed she was starting to think in English more naturally, not just understand it. Somewhere around day 25, something beautiful usually happens. And it happened for Elena too, right on schedule. She was watching a casual video, just a woman talking about her morning routine. Nothing special, nothing simplified for learners. And halfway through, Elena suddenly realized she wasn't translating anymore. She wasn't hearing English and mentally converting it to her native language before understanding it. She was just understanding, directly, immediately, the way you understand your first language. She actually paused the video and sat there for a moment, kind of stunned, because after 6 years of studying, This simple 30-day focused listening plan had finally unlocked something that years of casual, unstructured study never had. That moment, that click, is coming for you too. I promise you that, as long as you stay consistent. Let's talk honestly for a moment about the mistakes that stop people from reaching this point, because I've seen these mistakes over and over again, and I want you to avoid every single one of them. Mistake number 1 is relying too heavily on subtitles in your native language. This feels comfortable, but it trains your reading, not your listening. If you need subtitles, use English subtitles, so your eyes and ears are working with the same language, reinforcing each other instead of replacing each other. Mistake number 2 is choosing content that's way too difficult, way too early. If you jump straight into fast native news broadcasts on day 1, you'll feel defeated within minutes, and that emotional defeat is honestly more damaging than any grammar mistake could ever be. Mistake number 3 is listening passively, with your phone in the background while you do other things, and calling that practice. Passive listening has small benefits for getting used to the general sound and rhythm of a language, but it will not, by itself, take you to B1 level. You need focused, active sessions, even if they're short. Mistake number 4, and this might be the biggest one, is quitting the moment things feel hard, usually right around day 9, day 13, or day 19, exactly the moments I described earlier. Those uncomfortable moments are not signs that you're failing. They're signs that your brain is actively rewiring itself, and that process is never smooth or comfortable. Mistake number 5 is comparing your progress to someone else's timeline, forgetting that everyone's ears, background, and starting point are different. Elena's journey wasn't identical to anyone else's, and yours won't be either, and that's completely fine. I want to give you some very practical, very specific daily habits you can start using immediately, things that fit into real, busy lives, because I know most of you watching this have jobs, families, school, a million responsibilities, and 30 minutes of extra time can feel impossible to find some days. So here's how to make this realistic. Listen during your commute, even just 10 minutes on a bus or in a car, using slow, clear content during week 1, and gradually more natural content as the weeks progress. Listen while cooking dinner, using that gist listening technique, just catching the general topic while your hands are busy. Before bed, instead of scrolling on your phone for 20 minutes, put on a short podcast episode made for English learners and just relax into it, without any pressure to understand everything. Consistency matters far more than length. 10 focused minutes every single day will take you further than one exhausting 3-hour session once a week, because your brain needs regular, repeated exposure to build lasting connections, not occasional overwhelming bursts. Let me also talk about something emotional for a second, because language learning isn't just a mechanical process. It's deeply tied to our confidence, our identity, and, honestly, our courage. Elena told me something near the end of her 30 days that really stuck with me. She said learning to listen well in English didn't just help her understand baristas or strangers on the street. It changed how she saw herself. She stopped feeling like an outsider looking into the English-speaking world from behind glass and started feeling like she actually belonged inside conversations, inside jokes, inside real human connection. That's what real listening skill gives you. It's not just a checkbox on a language exam. It's the ability to genuinely connect with another human being, to laugh at their jokes at the right moment, to catch the emotion in their voice, to feel like part of the conversation instead of a confused observer standing just outside it. Now, I know some of you are going to ask, what happens after day 30? Does the learning just stop there? Absolutely not, and I want to be clear about that. Reaching B1 listening level is not a finish line. It's a solid, confident foundation that makes everything after it so much easier and more enjoyable. Once you're comfortable at B1, moving toward B2 and beyond becomes less about forcing yourself through difficult, frustrating content, and more about naturally enjoying English media, podcasts, shows, conversations, because your ears have finally learned how to work with this language instead of against it. Elena, months after finishing her 30 days, told me she now listens to English podcasts purely for entertainment, not even thinking of it as studying anymore. That's the real goal here, not just passing some invisible test, but reaching a point where English listening feels natural, enjoyable, and honestly, kind of fun. Let me quickly walk you through a simple summary of the rhythm of these 30 days, just so it's crystal clear in your mind before you start. In week 1, you're building your foundation with slow, simple, learner-focused audio, listening to the same short clips multiple times, connecting written words to their spoken sounds, and starting your listening journal to track small wins. In week 2, you're adding shadowing practice and prediction listening, training your mouth and brain to work together, while also learning to anticipate content before you hear it. In week 3, you're introducing variety, different accents, slightly more natural content, and the gist then, detail listening method, while pushing through that natural frustration wall that tends to appear right in the middle of the month. And in week 4, you're applying everything you've built to longer, more independent, more natural content, actively summarizing and recalling what you hear, building the real stamina and confidence that carries you into genuine B1 level understanding. I also want to give you a small bonus tip that I didn't mention yet, something that made a real difference for Elena and for many other learners I've worked with. Keep a small list of what I call sound surprises, moments where a word sounded completely different than you expected based on its spelling. Things like how though and through and tough all end differently despite looking somewhat similar. Or how comfortable often gets shortened in natural speech to sound like just 3 syllables instead of 4. Every time you notice one of these sound surprises, write it down. Over 30 days, this list becomes an incredibly personal, incredibly useful reference, because it's built entirely from your own real listening experiences, not some generic textbook list that might not even match the content you're actually consuming. One more thing before we wrap up, and this is important. Please be kind to yourself during this process. There will be days, maybe day 7, maybe day 22, where you listen to something and understand almost nothing, and it'll feel like you're going backward instead of forward. This happens to literally everyone, including advanced learners, including people who've lived in English-speaking countries for years. Some days, our brains are simply more tired, more distracted, less able to focus, and that has nothing to do with your actual progress or ability. Don't let one difficult day convince you that 30 days of consistent effort didn't work. Progress in listening isn't a straight line going smoothly upward. It's more like a shaky, wobbly line that generally trends upward over time, with dips and bumps along the way that are completely normal and expected. If you've made it this far into the video, I genuinely believe you have exactly what it takes to complete this 30-day journey and reach a real, confident B1 listening level. Elena did it, starting from 6 years of frustrating, stuck progress. Countless other learners in our community have done it too, sharing their own versions of that beautiful moment when translation finally stops and direct understanding finally begins. And now it's your turn. So here's what I want you to do right now, before you close this video, before you get distracted by something else. Comment below with the number 1, just the number 1, telling me and everyone else watching that you're officially starting day 1 of this 30-day listening journey today. This tiny public commitment matters more than you think. It creates a small sense of accountability that genuinely helps people follow through, especially around those tricky moments on day 9, day 13, and day 19 that we talked about earlier. If this video helped you even a little bit, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more learners just like you, who are stuck exactly where you might be feeling stuck right now. And if you want to keep learning with us, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because we're releasing more videos this month specifically designed to support you through each week of this journey, with extra practice clips, extra tips, and real listening exercises you can follow along with directly. Before you go, I want you to do one more thing, something small but meaningful. Right now, today, go find one short podcast episode or one short video made for English learners, just 2 or 3 minutes long. Listen to it once, just once, right now if you can. That's it. That's your entire day 1 assignment. Don't overthink it. Don't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect resource. Just start. 30 days from now, you could be exactly where Elena was, sitting somewhere ordinary, listening to someone talk, and suddenly realizing you understood every word without even trying to translate it. That moment is real, it's achievable, and it's waiting for you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I know your time is valuable, and the fact that you chose to spend part of it here, working on yourself, working on your English, genuinely means a lot. Remember, every fluent speaker you've ever admired started exactly where you are right now, confused sometimes, frustrated sometimes, but willing to keep showing up anyway. That willingness, that consistency, is truly the only real secret to language learning. There's no magic trick beyond it. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll dive even deeper into specific listening exercises you can use starting today. Until then, keep listening, keep practicing, and I'll talk to you very soon. This has been Alex from English in Fluency, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care of yourself, and take care of your ears, because in just 30 days, they're going to hear the world in a whole new way. Now, before we finish completely, I want to slow down and go a little deeper into some of the specific exercises I mentioned earlier, because I've gotten so many messages from people asking, "Alex, okay, but what exactly do I do, minute by minute, when I sit down to practice?" So let's get really practical for a few minutes, because I think the more specific I am, the easier this becomes for you to actually follow through on, instead of just nodding along and forgetting everything the moment this video ends. Let's start with dictation, a technique I mentioned briefly but didn't fully explain, and honestly, it might be the single most underrated listening exercise that exists. Here's how you do it properly. Choose a short audio clip, something between 30 seconds and 1 minute, spoken at a normal, natural pace. Play just the first few seconds, maybe 5 or 6 words, then pause and write down exactly what you heard, word for word, including small details like a versus the, or verb endings like ed or ing. Then play those same few seconds again, check what you missed, correct it, and move on to the next small chunk. This feels slow, almost painfully slow at first, and a single minute of audio might take you 15 or 20 minutes to fully dictate the very first time you try it. But here's the magic of this exercise. It forces you to notice every tiny sound detail that your brain normally just skips over or guesses at. Elena did dictation twice a week during her 30 days, usually on days when she had a little extra time, maybe a Sunday afternoon, and she told me it was frustrating every single time, but also strangely satisfying, like solving a small puzzle. By comparing her written dictation to the real transcript afterward, she started noticing patterns in her own mistakes. Things like consistently missing the small word have when it's said quickly, almost silently, in phrases like should have gone or could have called. Once she noticed that pattern, she started hearing it correctly almost every single time afterward, because awareness really is most of the battle when it comes to listening skills. Let's talk about another specific technique, one that works beautifully alongside everything else we've discussed, called chunking. When native speakers talk, they don't say individual words one by one like a robot. They group words together into natural chunks, little clusters of meaning that flow together as one unit. For example, instead of hearing I, die, am, going, to, thy, store, a fluent listener actually hears something closer to I'm gonna go to the store as 3 or 4 flowing chunks, not 6 separate words. During week 2 or week 3 of your journey, start training yourself to notice these chunks instead of individual words. One simple way to practice this is choosing a short sentence from something you're listening to, and instead of writing it out word by word, try grouping it into 2 or 3 natural chunks based on how it sounds when spoken quickly. This might feel strange at first, almost like you're breaking grammar rules you learned in school. But remember, natural spoken language and formal written language are honestly 2 slightly different systems, and both are equally correct, just used in different situations. I also want to spend a moment talking about vocabulary, because so many people assume that listening practice and vocabulary building are 2 completely separate things, when really they're deeply connected, especially at the B1 level. Here's something important to understand. You don't need a huge vocabulary to reach B1 listening comprehension. Research on language learning has shown again and again that a relatively small set of common words and phrases makes up the vast majority of everyday spoken English. This is honestly great news, because it means you don't need to memorize thousands of obscure words before your listening improves. Instead, focus on deeply learning the common, everyday vocabulary that appears constantly in casual conversation. Things related to daily routines, feelings, opinions, plans, and simple storytelling. During your 30 days, whenever you hear an unfamiliar word that seems to repeat across multiple different listening sessions, that's a strong signal that it's a high-value, common word worth learning properly. Add it to your journal. Write a simple example sentence using it, and try to notice it again the next time it appears in something you're listening to. This repeated contextual exposure works far better than sitting down and memorizing random word lists disconnected from any real listening experience. Let me tell you about another learner, a young man named Thomas, who went through this exact 30-day process about a year ago. Because I think his story adds something a little different from Elena's, something many of you might relate to even more directly. Thomas wasn't studying English for travel or curiosity. He needed it for his job, a remote position where he had daily video calls with English-speaking colleagues, and every single call filled him with quiet dread. He told me he would often just nod along, pretending to understand, terrified of asking someone to repeat themselves for the third time in one meeting. That kind of professional anxiety, that fear of looking incompetent in front of colleagues, is honestly one of the most emotionally exhausting experiences a language learner can go through. Because it's not just about language anymore. It starts to feel like it's about your entire competence and value as a professional. Thomas started this same 30-day plan, but he adapted it slightly for his specific situation. And I think this adaptation is worth mentioning, because your journey doesn't have to look identical to Elena's or anyone else's. During his work breaks, instead of always using generic learner content, he started listening to recordings of his own past meetings, the ones his company recorded for reference. At first, this was humbling, even a little painful, hearing exactly how much he'd missed in real conversations that had already happened. But he applied the same gist-then-detail method we talked about earlier, listening once for the general topic, then again for specific details. Then he'd write down 3 or 4 key phrases his colleagues used repeatedly, phrases specific to his industry and his team's particular way of speaking. By week 3, something shifted for him too. During a live meeting, his manager asked a question fairly quickly, without any special slowing down or simplifying, and Thomas realized, almost with surprise, that he'd understood the whole thing immediately. No panic, no freeze, no need to ask for repetition. He told me later that this single moment felt bigger to him than any grammar test he'd ever passed in school, because it was real, immediate, professional proof that his brain had genuinely changed. I share Thomas's story because I want you to understand something important. This 30-day plan works incredibly well as a general foundation, but you can and should personalize it toward your specific goals. If you're learning English for travel, focus extra listening time on travel-related conversations, ordering food, asking directions, checking into hotels. If you're learning for work, like Thomas, focus on meeting language, professional small talk, common workplace phrases. If you're learning simply because you love English-speaking movies, shows, and music, lean into that content specifically, because motivation and enjoyment massively boost how much your brain actually retains from any listening session. The core techniques, active listening, shadowing, prediction, gist and detail listening, dictation, chunking, these stay the same no matter your specific goal. but the actual content you apply them to should feel personally relevant and even a little exciting to you, not just generic practice material that feels disconnected from your real life. Let's address something else I get asked constantly, which is, Alex, what if I don't have 30 minutes a day? What if I genuinely only have 10 minutes some days? First, I want to reassure you, 10 focused minutes is absolutely enough to make real progress, especially if you're consistent with it every single day, rather than skipping days and trying to make up for it later with one long session. On busy days, here's a simple 10-minute version of this practice you can use. Spend the first 2 minutes doing prediction, thinking about what you're about to listen to and guessing a few words or phrases you expect to hear. Spend the next 5 minutes actually listening to a short clip, maybe listening to it twice if time allows. Spend the final 3 minutes either speaking a quick summary out loud or jotting down 2 or 3 words in your journal. This compressed version still activates the exact same brain processes as a longer session, just in a smaller, more efficient package. And honestly, some of my most successful students have been the busy ones who mastered this quick, efficient 10-minute routine, because consistency beats intensity every single time in language learning. I also want to address a fear that I know a lot of you are quietly carrying, even if you haven't said it out loud. The fear that maybe you're simply too old, too busy, too naturally bad at languages for this to actually work for you. I want to gently push back on that fear right now. Elena was 34 years old when she did this 30-day plan, after 6 years of what she considered failed progress. Thomas was 41, with a full-time job and 2 young children, squeezing in 10-minute sessions during work breaks and after his kids went to bed. Neither of them had some special natural gift for languages. What they had was a clear, structured plan, and the willingness to show up consistently, even on days when they didn't feel like it, even on days when progress felt invisible. Your brain, no matter your age, remains remarkably capable of building new neural pathways for language processing, especially with the kind of focused, active practice we've been discussing throughout this video. Age might change the speed slightly, but it does not change the fundamental possibility. You are not too old, too busy, or too anything to make this work, as long as you're willing to actually start and keep going. Let's return for a moment to the emotional side of this journey, because I think it deserves even more attention than we've already given it. Learning to listen well in a new language touches something surprisingly deep in us: our sense of connection, our sense of belonging, our sense of being truly seen and understood by other people. When you can't understand what someone is saying, there's a particular kind of loneliness in that, even in a crowded room full of people. And on the flip side, when understanding suddenly clicks, when you catch a joke at the right moment and laugh along with everyone else instead of a half-second late after seeing others react first, that feeling is genuinely one of the most joyful, connecting experiences language learning has to offer. I want you to hold on to that feeling as your real motivation through this 30 days, more than any grade, any certificate, any test score. You're not just training your ears to pass some invisible exam. You're opening a door to real human connection, real belonging, real presence in conversations that used to leave you feeling like an outsider looking in. Let's talk a little more about accents, because I promised earlier we'd explore that a bit further, and I think it deserves more time given how much anxiety it seems to cause learners. Many students tell me they specifically fear encountering an unfamiliar accent, worried it will completely destroy all the progress they've made. Here's something reassuring to understand. Accent adaptation is actually a skill in itself, separate from general listening comprehension, and it improves specifically through exposure to variety, exactly like we practiced during Week 3's accent tour exercise. The first time you hear a strong Scottish or Irish or Southern American accent, it might genuinely sound like a different language entirely, even though every single word is still English. But after just a handful of exposures, your brain starts recognizing the specific patterns of that accent, the particular way certain vowels shift, the particular rhythm and intonation and comprehension improves surprisingly quickly. This is why during Week 3, even brief daily exposure to different accents matters so much. Not because you need to master every single one, but because you're training your brain's general flexibility and adaptability, which then transfers to any new accent you encounter in the future, even ones you've never specifically practiced before. I want to give you one more practical tool before we wrap up completely, something I call the 2-pass rule, which works beautifully for any longer piece of content, a full podcast episode, a longer video, even a short film. On your first pass through the content, give yourself full permission to not understand everything. Just relax, follow the general story or topic, and let unfamiliar words and phrases pass by without stopping to look anything up. This first pass is purely about enjoying the flow, the rhythm, the overall experience of listening, exactly the way a native speaker experiences content, catching most things, missing some things, and moving forward naturally without panic. Then, on a second pass, maybe the next day or a few days later, revisit that exact same content, but this time pause occasionally to look up unfamiliar words or replay confusing sections. You'll be amazed how much more you catch on this second pass, partly because you already know the general story, which frees up mental space to focus on smaller details, and partly because your brain has had time to process and consolidate what it heard the first time. This 2-pass rule mirrors almost exactly the gist and detail method from Week 3, just applied to longer, more substantial pieces of content during Week 4 and beyond. As we come toward the end of this video, I want to remind you one more time of the emotional truth sitting underneath all these techniques and strategies. Elena, Thomas, and countless other learners in our community didn't succeed because they found some secret shortcut or magic trick that nobody else knew about. They succeeded because they showed up day after day, even during the frustrating middle weeks, even when progress felt slow or invisible, even when they wanted to quit around day 9 or day 19. The techniques we've covered today, active listening, shadowing, prediction, gist and detail listening, dictation, chunking, the accent tour, the 2-pass rule, these are all genuinely powerful, evidence-based tools. But none of them work without the simple, unglamorous ingredient of consistency. 30 days from today, you have a real choice in front of you. You can be exactly where you are right now, Still watching videos about how to improve, still feeling that quiet frustration every time English speeds up around you. Or you can be standing where Elena stood, where Thomas stood, suddenly realizing, almost with surprise, that understanding has become natural, automatic, something you don't have to fight for anymore. So here's my final ask of you today, and I promise this is the last thing before we go. Right now, before you close this video, before life pulls your attention somewhere else, write down tomorrow's date in your phone or your calendar and label it Day 1. Not next week, not once you find the perfect podcast, not once things calm down at work. Tomorrow, or honestly, if you can manage it, right now, today. Small, imperfect action beats perfect planning every single time in language learning. Comment below with your Day 1 date, so this becomes a real public commitment rather than just another video you watched and forgot about by tomorrow afternoon. If this video gave you even a small spark of hope or motivation, please like it, share it with a friend who's been stuck at the same frustrating listening plateau you might have been stuck at, and subscribe to English in Fluency, so we can walk through the rest of this journey together, week by week, with more detailed practice videos coming very soon. Thank you again for being here, for giving me your time and your attention, both of which are genuinely precious and limited. I believe in you, even though we've likely never met, because I've watched this exact transformation happen for so many learners before you. People who started exactly where you are right now, uncertain, a little frustrated, wondering if real fluency was even possible for them. It is possible. It's closer than you think. 30 days really can change how you hear the world. I'm Alex. This has been English in Fluency, and I genuinely cannot wait to hear about your progress in the comments below. Until next time, keep those ears open, stay patient with yourself, and I'll see you very soon in the next video. Okay, I said that was the last thing, but I lied a little, because I keep thinking about all the questions you might still have swirling in your head right now, and I don't want you closing this video with any doubt left unanswered. So let's spend just a little more time together, working through some of the things learners ask me most often, because I think hearing these answered clearly might be exactly what pushes you from thinking about starting to actually starting. One question I hear constantly is, Alex, what if I try this and 30 days pass and I still don't feel like I've reached B1 level? Does that mean the method failed? Or does it mean I failed? Neither. Honestly, neither. Some learners reach a comfortable B1 listening level in 25 days. Some need closer to 45 days, depending on where they started, how consistent they were, how much natural exposure to English they already had in their daily lives before starting this plan. The number 30 is a strong, motivating target, a realistic time frame for most learners, with a genuine starting point somewhere around A2. But it's not a strict, rigid deadline where failure to hit it exactly means something went wrong. Think of it more like a marathon training plan. Most people following a solid 16-week marathon program can complete a marathon by the end of that plan, but a few need 18 or 20 weeks instead. And that doesn't mean the plan failed them, it just means every single body, every single brain, adapts at its own particular pace. What matters far more than hitting day 30 exactly is that you keep the momentum going, that you don't let one slightly slower timeline convince you to quit entirely. Another question that comes up again and again is about tools and resources. People ask me, Alex, what app should I use? What podcast should I use? What's the one perfect resource? And honestly, I think this question, while completely understandable, sometimes becomes a sneaky form of procrastination. People spend so much time researching the perfect resource that they delay actually starting for days or even weeks. Here's my honest advice. Any reasonably clear audio content made for English learners at a level that challenges you without overwhelming you will work perfectly well for Week 1 and Week 2. As you move into Week 3 and Week 4, any native content with reasonably clear audio, interviews, casual conversation videos, simple podcasts, will work just as well. The specific resource matters far less than the consistency and the technique you apply to it. Elena used a mix of free language learning podcasts and random videos she found online. Thomas mostly used his own work meeting recordings alongside a few general podcasts. Neither of them used some secret, exclusive resource unavailable to everyone else. They used ordinary, accessible content, applied with focused, active technique, day after day. Let's talk about something else that comes up a lot, which is testing and measuring progress. Some of you watching this might be preparing for an actual English proficiency exam, something with an official B1 listening section, and you're wondering how this 30-day plan fits into that specific goal. Here's the good news. Everything we've covered directly strengthens exactly the skills tested in typical B1 listening exam sections. Understanding main ideas in conversations, understanding specific details in short recordings, following simple narratives and instructions. If you're preparing for a specific exam, I'd recommend adding one extra element during Week 4 specifically. Practicing with actual past exam listening sections if they're available to you, so you become familiar with the particular format and question style of your specific exam, alongside the general listening skill you've been building throughout the month. The underlying skill, understanding spoken English clearly and confidently, transfers directly into exam performance, but exam formats sometimes have their own particular quirks worth getting comfortable with separately. I also want to talk about something a little more personal, something I don't think gets discussed enough in language learning content. The role of self-talk during this process. The words you say to yourself, quietly, in your own mind, while you're struggling through a difficult listening exercise, matter more than most people realize. If your internal voice keeps saying things like, "I'm just bad at this," "I'll never understand native speakers," "Everyone else seems to get this except me," that internal narrative actually makes learning measurably harder, increasing anxiety and reducing your brain's ability to focus and absorb new information. Elena told me she had a moment around day 15 where she caught herself thinking exactly these kinds of harsh, defeating thoughts, and she made a conscious decision to change the script, literally telling herself out loud, "This is hard because it's supposed to be hard right now." And that's exactly how learning works. That small shift in internal language didn't magically make the listening easier, but it made her far more willing to keep showing up through the difficulty, which, over 30 days, made all the difference in the world. Let me walk you through what a really great, focused practice session might sound like from start to finish. Almost like I'm sitting right there with you, guiding you through it in real time, because I think a concrete example ties everything we've discussed together in a really practical way. Imagine it's day 16 of your journey, right in the middle of week 3. You sit down with 10 or 15 minutes available, headphones ready, notebook open. First, you spend 1 minute thinking about what you're about to listen to. Maybe it's a short interview about someone's daily morning routine, and you jot down 3 words you expect to hear. Things like wake up, breakfast, coffee. Then you press play, listening all the way through once without pausing, just catching the general flow. Noticing how many of your predicted words actually appeared. Maybe you caught 2 out of 3, coffee and breakfast, but missed wake up because the speaker actually said something like roll out of bed. Instead, a phrase you hadn't expected. You write that phrase down in your journal, a nice little sound surprise for your growing personal list. Then you listen again, this time pausing every 20 or 30 seconds, checking specific details, noticing that connected speech blend where what time sounds almost like woo time when spoken quickly and casually. You write a quick 1-sentence summary in your journal, something simple like, a woman talks about waking up late and rushing to make coffee before work. Finally, you spend 1 minute speaking out loud, in your own words, a tiny summary of what you heard, practicing that active recall we talked about earlier. That's it. That's a complete, focused, effective 15-minute session. And doing something similar to this, adjusted slightly week by week as your skills grow, is genuinely the entire secret behind this whole 30-day transformation. I also want to briefly mention something about plateaus, because even within a successful 30-day journey, you might notice a few days where progress feels completely flat, where you don't feel any different from 3 or 4 days earlier. This is normal, and it doesn't mean your efforts are wasted. Skill development, especially something as complex as listening comprehension, doesn't improve in a perfectly smooth, steady line. It often improves in small, sudden jumps, following periods that feel flat or even slightly frustrating. Your brain is quietly consolidating everything it's been absorbing during those flat-feeling days. And then, often without warning, a noticeable jump in understanding appears, sometimes triggered by something as simple as a good night's sleep, or a particularly engaging piece of content that happens to click everything into place. Both Elena and Thomas described this exact pattern. Flat-feeling stretches followed by sudden, almost surprising jumps in comprehension, rather than one smooth, gradual climb from start to finish. Before we truly wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought, something I genuinely believe with my whole heart after years of watching learners go through this exact process. Confidence in listening isn't actually built from understanding everything perfectly. It's built from proving to yourself, again and again, small session after small session, that you can sit with confusion, stay calm inside it, and still extract meaning, connection, and progress from it. That's the real skill underneath all the techniques we've discussed today, the ability to tolerate not understanding 100%, while still actively engaging and learning from what you do understand. Every single fluent listener you've ever admired, in any language, developed exactly this same tolerance for partial understanding, this same comfort with productive confusion, long before they ever felt fully fluent. You're building that same tolerance right now, starting today, starting with whatever short clip of audio you choose to listen to as soon as this video ends. So, one final time, here's what I want from you. Comment your day one date below, right now, before you scroll away to something else. Tell me where you're starting from, whether you feel closer to A2 or already comfortable somewhere around A2+, so I can genuinely understand who's out there in this community working through this journey with me. Like this video, if it gave you clarity, direction, or even just a little bit of hope today. Subscribe to English in Fluency. Hit that notification bell, because over the coming weeks, we're going deeper into every single technique mentioned today, with full guided practice sessions you can follow along with directly, step by step, exercise by exercise. This channel exists entirely for learners like you, people putting in real effort, looking for real, honest guidance, rather than empty promises or unrealistic shortcuts. I see that effort, I respect it deeply, and I'm genuinely honored to be even a small part of your journey toward real, confident English fluency. Thank you again, truly, for spending this time with me today. I know exactly how valuable your time is, and choosing to spend part of it here, working on something as meaningful as your own communication and connection with the world, says a lot about who you are and where you're headed. I'll be right here, cheering you on, every single step of this 30-day journey and far beyond it. This is Alex from English in Fluency, wishing you a wonderful, focused, and genuinely transformative next 30 days. Go start your day one right now, and I promise I'll see you very soon in our next video together. Actually, hold on. Stay with me just a little longer, because there's one more part of this story I haven't shared yet, and I think it might be the most important part of all. A few weeks after Elena finished her 30 days, she sent me a message that I still think about often. She said she'd gone to a small family gathering, the kind with relatives speaking mostly her native language, except for one cousin's husband, an English speaker who usually sat quietly at these gatherings, a little disconnected, because nobody really spoke enough English to include him properly in the conversation. This time, Elena sat down next to him, and for the first time in years of these family gatherings, she actually talked with him, really talked, following his stories, laughing at his jokes at the right moment, asking follow-up questions naturally, without that panicked translation delay she used to experience constantly. She told me afterward that this small, quiet moment, this ordinary family conversation, meant more to her than any test score or certificate ever could, because it was proof that her hard work had turned into something real, something human, something that made another person feel a little less alone at a gathering where he usually sat quietly on the outside. That's honestly what this entire 30-day journey is really about. Underneath all the techniques, all the exercises, all the structured weekly plans we've walked through today. It's about connection. It's about the ability to sit next to another human being and actually understand them, actually be present with them, instead of nodding along in confused, polite silence. Every single exercise we've discussed today, the shadowing, the dictation, the prediction listening, the gist and detail method, the accent tour, they're not just abstract language skills sitting in a textbook somewhere. They're tools that lead directly toward moments exactly like the one Elena experienced at that family gathering, moments where language stops being a barrier and starts being a bridge. I also want to acknowledge something, honestly. something I don't think gets said enough in language learning content. This journey isn't always going to feel inspiring or exciting. Some days, it's going to feel like ordinary, slightly boring discipline, sitting down for 10 minutes with a podcast episode when you'd honestly rather be doing literally anything else. That's completely normal, and I don't want to pretend otherwise just to make this video sound more motivational. The truth is, most meaningful progress in life, not just in language learning, comes from exactly this kind of unglamorous, repeated ordinary effort, showing up on the boring days just as much as the exciting ones. Elena didn't feel inspired every single day of her 30 days. Tomas certainly didn't either, especially during exhausting weeks with his young kids barely sleeping through the night. They showed up anyway, imperfectly, sometimes tiredly, sometimes with genuine reluctance, and that imperfect consistency is precisely what carried them all the way through to real, lasting change. I want to leave you with a specific image to hold on to, something to return to on the difficult days when motivation feels distant and quitting feels tempting. Picture yourself exactly 30 days from today, sitting somewhere ordinary, maybe your kitchen table, maybe your desk at work, maybe on public transportation, heading somewhere unremarkable. Someone nearby, or on a call, or in a video, says something in natural, normal speed English, and you understand it immediately, without translating, without panicking, without that familiar frozen feeling washing over you. It's not a dramatic, cinematic moment. It's quiet, almost unremarkable in the moment itself, but it represents something huge, months or years of frustration finally resolving into simple, comfortable understanding. That moment is available to you, genuinely available, starting with the small, sometimes boring, sometimes uncomfortable daily practice we've outlined together throughout this entire video. So here we are, truly at the end now. I've given you everything I genuinely believe you need. The full 30-day structure, the specific techniques for each week, the real stories of learners who walked this exact path before you, the honest acknowledgement of the difficulties you'll likely face along the way, and hopefully a renewed sense that this goal, real B1 listening comprehension, real confident understanding of natural English, is genuinely within your reach, starting today. Not next month, not once conditions feel perfectly ready. Today, with whatever 10 or 15 minutes you can genuinely commit to this evening or tomorrow morning. One last time, I'm asking you to take that first small action. Find a short piece of English learning audio. Press play. Listen actively using even just one of the techniques we discussed today. And write down day 1 somewhere you'll see it again tomorrow. Comment below and let this entire community know you're starting, because collective accountability genuinely works. And I promise you, dozens of other learners reading this video's comments are starting their own day 1 at this exact same moment, right alongside you. Like this video, subscribe to English in Fluency, and join me for the next video in this series, where we'll go even deeper into specific practice sessions you can follow along with in real time. Thank you for trusting me with your time today, and more importantly, thank you for trusting yourself enough to consider starting this journey in the first place. That trust, that willingness to try, even after previous frustration or previous attempts that didn't quite work out, is genuinely the most important ingredient in everything we've discussed today. I believe in your ability to reach real, confident, B1 listening comprehension within these next 30 days, and I'm genuinely excited to hear about your progress along the way. This is Alex from English in Fluency, and I'll see you very soon in the next video, and hopefully in the comments section right below this one, where your own Day 1 journey officially begins. Before the credits roll on this one, let me give you a handful of quick, concrete examples of the kind of sound blending you'll start noticing once you begin this practice, just so your ears already have a little head start before Day 1 even begins. When someone says, "I don't know," in relaxed, casual speech, it often comes out sounding closer to "I don't know," almost like one single word instead of three. When someone says "going to" in a casual sentence like "I'm going to call her later," it frequently shortens to something like "gonna." And this isn't lazy or incorrect speech. It's simply how natural spoken English works in casual, everyday situations. When someone says, "Did you?" at the start of a question, like, "Did you eat yet?" the two words often blend into something closer to "did ya," with that soft J sound replacing the separate D and Y sounds. None of this means written English is wrong or that spoken English breaks the rules. It simply means spoken and written English are two related but distinct systems, each with its own natural patterns, and part of your 30-day journey is becoming comfortable moving fluidly between both of them. I also want to mention something small but genuinely useful, something Thomas discovered on his own around week 3 that he shared with me afterward. He started keeping a second separate list alongside his Sound Surprises list, this one specifically for filler words and casual conversation habits. Things like, "you know," "I mean," "kind of," "like," used constantly in natural spoken English as small connective tissue between thoughts, without carrying much actual meaning themselves. Early in his journey, these filler words genuinely confused him, because he kept trying to translate and understand them literally, wasting valuable mental energy on words that weren't actually central to the meaning of the sentence. Once he recognized them as filler, as natural conversational padding rather than important content, he learned to let them pass by without stopping his listening flow, focusing his attention instead on the actual meaningful content surrounding them. This small shift alone noticeably reduced his sense of feeling lost or overwhelmed during real, casual conversations. I think it's worth also mentioning, gently, that everyone's 30 days will include a few days that simply don't go according to plan. A sick day, a busy work deadline, a family emergency. Ordinary life interrupting your practice schedule despite your best intentions. If this happens to you, and it very well might, please don't treat it as a reason to abandon the entire plan. Simply pick back up the next day, right where you left off, without adding guilt or self-criticism into the mix. Elena missed 2 full days during her 30 days, once due to a work emergency, once simply because she felt exhausted and mentally unavailable for any focused practice. She didn't restart from day 1 afterward, she just continued forward, and those 2 missed days made essentially no noticeable difference in her overall 30-day outcome. Perfection was never the requirement here. Consistency over time, even slightly imperfect consistency, is what actually produces real results. As we genuinely close things out now, I want to remind you one final time of the shape of this journey, laid out simply and clearly in your mind. Week 1. Building your foundation with slow, clear, repeated listening, and beginning your personal journal. Week 2. Adding shadowing and prediction listening, training your mouth and brain together while learning to anticipate meaning before you hear it. Week 3. Embracing variety through different accents and more natural content, using the gist then detail method, and pushing gently through that natural frustration wall that tends to appear right around the middle of the month. Week 4. Applying everything toward longer, more independent, more natural content, actively summarizing what you hear, and building the real stamina and confidence that carries you into genuine, comfortable B1 level understanding. That's the whole plan, laid out honestly and completely. Exactly as I've shared it with hundreds of learners before you, learners who started exactly where you're starting today, with nothing more than curiosity, a little frustration, and a genuine willingness to try something structured and consistent for 30 focused days. I really do believe this can be your month. The month everything shifts. The month confusion starts turning quietly into confidence. One small session at a time. Drop your day one date in the comments. Hit like if this gave you real clarity today. Subscribe for the deeper practice videos coming very soon. And most importantly, actually go start today, right now, with whatever small piece of audio you can find in the next few minutes. This is Alex, from English in Fluency. Thank you again for being here, and I'll see you very soon in the next video.